Hello and welcome to the podcast, The Breathing Body. In this podcast, I invite you to journey through conversations which share the fascination of the physical matter we inhabit, the breathing body. We will explore its inherent intelligence, movement, healing, and much more. My name is Verena and I'm the host of this podcast. I'm an osteopath with a background in dance and yoga and based in London, where I practice, lecture and research. And I'm so happy that you are here. Thank you. I'm incredibly excited to have my dear friend and teacher, Helen Noakes, on the show today. A woman who is following her golden path with so much passion and trust and love. And I felt newly inspired after this conversation to listen to all the signs and impulses we receive, even if we don't know yet where they lead us to. And to really connect to my body, knowing it knows my body is my best teacher. Helen is a nomadic yoga teacher inspired by the teachings and students of Vanda Scaravelli, who is the author of the book Awakening the Spine. And that is actually how I met Helen initially, on a yoga workshop in Switzerland, and shortly after on her yoga teacher training in India. And it was the beginning of a love story, all about to listen to the song of our body, my body, and work with it rather than against. Helen also offers training in Chavutti Thirumal, I hope I pronounced that correctly, massage, which is massage by foot pressure. And this has a strong influence on her teaching style. She is passionate about spontaneous, intuitive movement in the form of waves and spirals, and includes her love of ecstatic dance into her teaching. Helen's aim is to invite a lightness of being and joy to our movement practice, and to encourage others to listen and respond to their intuition with safety and awareness. Her teachings have no methods or set sequences and are mainly improvisational, and this approach encourages the practitioner to create a strong relationship to the ground, breath, and to awaken the spine. We talked about Helen's journey, which led her to do what she's doing today, and all the experiences on the way which gave her inspiration and insight, and what she is practicing today to keep literally plugged into her body, which is our temple and our best teacher. I hope you will enjoy our conversation, and I'm looking forward reading your thoughts and comments about it on Instagram or Facebook or any podcast platform you are listening from at the moment. You can see where to find me and the breathing body in the show notes. Enjoy. We have today Helen Noakes joining us from Greece. Helen, it's an honor, a pleasure, and I just feel so much love that you are here and that you're willing to talk with me and share with all the listeners a little bit about your journey, your story, and your view on movement, touch, and healing, which I know is what your life is all about. And I know is what you are inspiring so many other people and students about. And first of all, thank you for that, because I have to say one more time, Helen, that we have met in Switzerland, that's for sure 10 years ago, in a yoga workshop, which was literally life-changing for me in a way that you were the one who, for the first time in my life, you helped me to know what it means and what it feels if one follows one passion and calling. And on that note, I think it would be wonderful if we start this conversation, if you wouldn't mind to share. Your yoga journey started in 1993 in Australia when you discovered Iyengar. But before that, you worked in a in a different industry. You worked as a makeup artist. And tell us, how did you come from working as a makeup artist to now earning all your living as a yoga movement teacher? Was that always a calling and a passion?
Great questions, Verena. Thank you so much. I'm so honoured to be here with you, and I remember exactly the moment I met you in Lucerne, and you had a huge impact on me and our dear friend Esther. So thank you to her for bringing us together, and thank you so much for us meeting on this Sunday afternoon. And it's a bit outside. I just wanted to be outside, so we're with the elements, which is my major inspiration anyway. So thanks for that great question. I had a real calling to do makeup actually when I was very young, and I used to practice on myself in the 80s, because in the 80s we just covered ourselves in a lot of makeup all the time. And then I realised that I started to study a little bit of makeup at home by myself, and then I applied to be at the London College of Fashion, but didn't get in because quite frankly, I wasn't talented enough to be a makeup artist. But to cut a very long story short, I ended up being a wig dresser, and my auntie, my mother's sister, still is a very wonderful wig dresser for film and TV, and she showed me. I applied for a job at the English National Opera whilst doing a temporary job in the day, so I had an evening job, and she showed me how to put a wig on the night before, and I went for the interview and got it, and I basically trained on the job working at English National Opera in Covent Garden, and the Coliseum is the building. And that was a fantastic experience, because I was thrown in literally at the deep end. Like, my first opera was giving loads of ball caps to tons of actors, and all the wig room were, they were extremely talented bunch of people. So they really took me under my wing, and I made some lifelong friends who I'm still friends with now. Those that are still alive, and I just learned how to be in people's field very close, because it's a very intimate thing to touch someone's head, as you know, working in the field that you're in with osteopathy. The head it's such a major connection, and it's very intimate. So one had to learn how to be intimate in different situations with different people and different actors and singers. By the way, opera singers are very different to actors. They emit a certain energy. So you knew when you went into a dressing room how to be, like whether to be quiet or whether to be chatty. And of course I was young. I was 19, 19. So I was a complete and absolute beginner. And I was in, a fabulous atmosphere. Of course, everybody was open about their sexuality, so everybody could be who they wanted to be. There were no boundaries. Everybody was open and accepting for everything. And then I was working every day. I was pretty much working 6 days a week, every day and every night. As we know, living in London, we had to pay the rent. So same, nothing changes. So I was really working and partying, and obviously I had loads of energy. And then thankfully there was a job coming up at the National Theatre, so I was very, very grateful to work there for a number of years. And I went on tour with a play called Richard III, and I was very, very blessed to be on that, to be again working with people. We were 8 shows a week, and we travelled through east to west through the United States. And so again, you learned about not only living, you had to live with people. We had to get people going. You're doing the same show 8 times a week. it's a very long Shakespearean play, as you know. And in the end, you start ending up doing crazy things at the side of stage, trying to make people laugh. And, you know, you end up being a real team. And those people that I went on tour with inevitably ended up being extremely accomplished actors. And I'll never forget that time with them. It was really special. And we were treated very, very well. And so I had the money then to go traveling. So I left everything, and that's how I had a dream to go to Australia, and on the way I happened to pop into Asia on the way and end up staying in Asia for a much longer time than I ever imagined, of course. And ended up working at the Sydney Opera House for some unknown reason, and ended up designing for them because I was very, very blessed to have excellent training. And it was then when I was living in Melbourne, actually before that, when I was traveling in Thailand, I just ended up doing yoga on the beach, meeting people. I mean, Thailand then was nothing compared to how it was then. That was in 93. So we just ended up kind of doing yoga on the beach, and I really enjoyed it, and I didn't know what was happening. I had no training. I just ended up doing on the beach, and then I moved to Melbourne for a while working for the National Ballet. Incredible, because I ended up working with Baz Luhrmann and really incredible directors. So that was just phenomenal to be in that scene. And and so I found this little studio around the corner where I was staying, right downtown, and this beautiful woman was teaching yoga inspired by Iyengar, and she was very gentle and soft and loving, and it was her loving presence that really kind of took me in her arms. And she introduced me to Mata Amritanandamayi Ma, Amaji, the hugging guru, she'd actually come to her studio. She had hosted her. This is a long time ago. So I was like, wow, she's cool. So I ended up playing with her, and then traveling and more traveling, and made a home back in England. And I started more Iyengar classes in Brighton, where I ended up living. And that's when, of course, when I met, I happened to find Natural Bodies, which is Gary Carter's company. And I've since then been to India. I'd met Amma. I did some massage training. I was already massaging, and so in the end, it kind of happened that when I was on my trip, I actually did this podcast with Gary talking about exactly the same thing. When I was on my big 2-year trip, which was meant to be 1 year, but it ended up being 2 years, I met this when I was just your age. Okay, I was just your age, and I sat with this amazing Spanish woman, and she's a tarot card reader. And I said, look, I'm in wigs, I'm in makeup. I really want a change of career. I don't want to work these long hours anymore. I want to be outside, starting to go to festivals. Being in England, that's what you do. And she said, yes, you're going to be learning massage. You're going to be traveling to India, you're going to be doing a lot of yoga. And I was like, I don't want to go to India. No, thanks. And then everything she said came true. Absolutely everything. I even wrote it down. Absolutely everything she said came true to the detail. And so I followed everything she did. So I went back and trained in Swedish massage with Claire Maxwell Hudson. I met Gary. Everything just flowed. And I went to India and learned Chavutti Thirumal, massage by foot pressure. And everything flowed. Everything just opened up. And I really took the risk, and I really trusted what she said. And I really had faith in this is what I wanted to do. And so I got a job while this was all happening, I got a job at Glyndebourne at the opera. In Lewis. And so while they were really supportive, because I was massaging everybody, they really were helpful in my teacher training. They were really supportive. So I had a beautiful transition. So I was able to slowly transition from my old job. Gary then gave me a room in his studio, so I was giving treatments there and in other places in Brighton. And slowly and gradually, when he opened up his program, I said, I really want to join your teacher training, and you don't have a choice. Here I am. And I basically submitted my application and said, I'm coming. And he said, okay. And that's how it all started. And he was so wonderful. He really embraced me in his studio as part of the team. And I was giving treatments and massage and doing his training. I was so lucky. Blessed, whatever you want to call it, everything aligned, because I really trusted and knew that this is what I wanted to do. And because I was coming through my Saturn return, if you're into astrology, that's a big, that was my big life change. From leaving a job that was very steady income, and, you know, it was great time. We had a great time. I had a wonderful time at Glyndebourne. But I really knew that my body is my gut instinct. It was all my gut, my heart, my head. It was definitely saying, do this. And that started the love affair with India. And that was it, you know, every winter. And then a good friend of mine, Julie, she said, come and help me open a yoga center. And Bob's your uncle. That's how it happened. And she encouraged me to teach massage, and it just like India does, it just allows you to open up, and it just rolled out. You could go with the flow. You are saying so many so many wonderful inspirational things where I think, oh, tell us more about this and that. I think one thing which really touches me, and I think is an inspiration for all of us, that I get this sense that you were loving into your journey. You were loving into unexpected things you met, into changes. You knew it's all right. Is that you? Yes. You were loving into it and just going with it. And the other thing what I really touched me, or what I noticed now that I know your story a little bit, but not in too much depth either. When you shared, you started working as a makeup artist, and when you shared how you noticed what it means to touch someone's heads, and that different people receive, perceive, meet, touch differently, and immediately you get a sense of how someone wants to be met or touched. And it made me realize, wow, even though, you came from working with opera and artists, and now you are a movement yoga teacher, your work was always about bodies, about meeting on different levels, but it was always about also the physical matter of bodies, and touch bodies through different media. Whilst once you touch them with makeup tools, you might now touch them with your feet or hands. And I would love to hear more about what does that, have you always been fascinated about the body movements? Or when was that point where you very consciously maybe noticed, wow, that's the path I want to go down? That's such a good question. I think it was an organic process, Florina. You know, it was a really organic process. At first, because I was so young, there was part of my nervous system, the people-pleasing part, the fawning was very up, and because sometimes when you're with people who you admire, or you put on a pedestal, whatever, you notice how your confidence drops. But as soon as I realized I could trust my touch, and because when you put a wig on, you have to, especially if they've got long hair, you have to make pin curls, and then you put a stocking, so it's not very attractive. And then the way that you touch someone, help them feel at ease, because obviously they're about to go on stage. It's a half-hour call. It's very rushed. You have to see about 6 or 7 people. I still have dreams about it all the time, actually, about being late and being in strange places. And also you have to notice how you smell, how you look, how your fingers are. Obviously the hands have to be clean and smell good. And I would notice how I would immediately feel really good in some people's presence, and other people's presence I would feel that I would have to be extremely quiet, and it was almost like a ritual or it's like a kind of meditative movement in their field. Other people, it was just laughing and fun. So I think what sparked my interest was that change of energy when you went into someone's field, and I realized that my body needed to feel good, because we're in certain positions all the time. So I'm like this all the time, working on the wig block, and you're bending over someone, and I realized, well, you have to be engaged with your feet, you have to be engaged with your breath, and it really starts to look at your body mechanics. And obviously being inspired, living in Brighton was the best place, because you had so many yoga studios, and meeting Gary was a huge inspiration. And of course I was massaging bodies at the time as well, so I was mixing that, so people would come and see me for massage in my breaks. So that also helped me to awaken the sense of touch, the sensory nerve endings in my hands and the feet. So I really much more not only did I enjoy the creative process, because we were always free to create with wigs in the UK, you're really free to create what you want, and then you have to make that creation fit that body. So it's not only how you touch them and how you present yourself and what you're feeling when you're in their field, you also have to mold the wig to their face. So you get a drawing from the director or the designer, and then you'd have to recreate that on the body. So you'd get a drawing, and then you'd have to make it in 3D. And then not only that, you have to create it on the wig block, which is, obviously faceless, and then it has to fit the person. So then you have to tweak it so it suits the person. So you'd bring like ringlets down, or move it around a bit while it's on their head, while keeping them happy, while giving them encouragement. So, you really have to be, I'm not going to go into the wig room and say, oh, I had a really bad day today, and and I was always like, this looks really good on you. I tried this today on your wig. What do you think? Do you like this? How do you feel in the wig? So you really try to engage them in part of the creative process, which is part of them preparing for going on stage. And I like the best was being on the side of stage doing quick changes. That's when I learnt the most. I've got so
What
many.
did you learn in these moments?
Oh my God, I could write a book about that. Maybe I
you
should.
should.
Oh my goodness. I worked, I've got flashing so many memories, but there was one, what I learned basically was to trust myself. Because, I had a 13-second quick change with a beautiful actress who was playing Marilyn Monroe. And she had a wig, she had very short hair, she had a wig on, and I had to put another wig on top. And then she had to change complete costume, and then I had to put her rings on and put her wig on in 13 seconds.
Wow.
And one time I put the wig on, and when she went on stage, it was starting to come off. And my legs buckled, because I watched her. She was extremely intelligent and a very, very high power energy, very high frequency. And so my legs buckled, and I knew I was in so much trouble. And she taught me how to face confrontation. She called me into a dressing room. We practiced again, and we understood why it happened. It was, things like that happen all the time. Yeah. It's live theatre, and that really helped me to mature in that moment a little bit. And so all the quick changes, you have to be there, you have to be present, you have to be happy, they have to trust you completely. So there's no space for fidgeting or not being sure. You have to be absolutely sure and present in yourself, with your feet on the ground, grounded.
Fully in your body.
Fully present, and because they are relying on you to get them ready to go on to that in the quick change. And you're also working with the dresser, with the costume person. So you have to kind of find your spaciousness within that. So the costume person's like doing something, and then I'm kind of going around the back and at the side, gluing stuff, because quite often the lace would unglue, because you have a lace and then you have it's all real hair. The hair would be sewn in and made beautifully. It's a complete art, a dyeing art, actually. So, you would have to glue on. And often things, you'd have to touch things up. And in the National Theatre, where I had my, so many experiences, we'd also have to be doing makeup. So I was doing special effects and with Rice Krispies and, fabulous fun. So I learned so much, and we were continuously thrown in the deep end. Gary used to do that to me quite a lot as well. It's like, okay, here you go and do this.
It's so inspirational, Helen, to hear how actually in an environment which is so hectic and you could have experienced it as pure stress, and how actually it's gifted you to what you said. You learned to trust yourself, to be present, to feel your feet, to just be fully there. And you mentioned before heart, guts, and then heads. And maybe on that note, I would love to hear, you now several times mentioned how you were in Brighton and you met Gary. What happened when you met Gary? For all the people who do not know Gary is a most wonderful, wise, UK-based, he will be on the show at one point. He's many things: movement teacher, yoga teacher, fascia researcher, just a wonderful person. And we both studied with Gary. You met him obviously before I met him. I met Gary because I met Helen. So these are the people you all have to meet. But yeah, tell us what shifted in you when you met Gary?
It was actually the way that he was expressing movement that I was able to feel something completely new in my body. It was like, I couldn't put it in words. I love the way that he explained everything. It was a bit like a storytelling, and he took you on a very deep journey, and it was completely different to being told what shape to make, how to do it, what sequence, which has a great place. I really enjoyed that, but he took it to the next level. And more, not just the next level, to many different levels. I enjoyed how he held the space and the room and the people. And, I met him when he was starting to work with Tom Myers. So I was really blessed to, and he said, "You've got to give Tom Myers a massage." And I was like, "No, don't make me do that." And I did, and and Gary was waiting for me afterwards, and he was very sweet. There's another teacher called Joe Averson who he was working with at the time, and that was our teacher training I was doing, and they were very, very, very supportive. And so I just loved the way that he took you into your own body and then connected it to others, to our environment, and how he weaved in the physiology beautifully, with hands-on expression and his experience in not only in movement but cycling, sports. His father's a big influence. He's still hurdling in his 80s. He's got such a way of his graphic artist background. He was able to bring all of those gifts into his teaching. So I continue to study with him now. I'm on one of his courses right now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So, and he also comes to India to teach with us, and we were offering courses for the past 7 years. And so he really opened up some new doors, and he introduced into our training, cranial sacral therapy. We met all of Vanda's people. Vanda had met quite a few students going to her, but he managed to get Sandra Sabatini, Elizabeth Pounce, who's my mentor, and Diane Long, and some others, a wonderful Pat Sparrow, who sadly left her body, but she was amazing. I remember she was teaching, and Gary sat in the class and he recorded how many times she went to adjust or be with each person for each pose that she was teaching. And literally it was hundreds of times. And he fed back to us what he observed in her teaching. And I'll never forget that, because she was so present. She talked continuously. It was like a shruti note. It was this continuous stream of consciousness, but she was still able to demonstrate, adjust, be with people, be funny, and still teach. And he was very good at observing that and helping us to bring out our own unique teaching. For everybody that's been on his teacher training, we're all pretty much, all of us, I think, everybody has been on his training, are teaching or sharing. So, you know, that's what made him different. And then, of course, when he did his dissection with Julian, I was like, yes, please. I've been on a few dissection, well, just working with body bits with Julian. And when they did their course in Nottingham with 3 cadavers, I was blown away. And this was a number of years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer, I can't remember. It still blows my mind. I still can't stop talking about it. I still bring it up with pretty much everybody. It just made me realize.
Was blew your mind, yeah?
Yeah, because I know you're dissecting right now.
Last week.
Last week you were dissecting with Julian. Phenomenal teacher, by the way. Phenomenal. What made me say that again? What made me want to do it?
You said it blew your mind when you were in the section lab. What was it? What blew your mind or fascinated you or deeply touched you? We have to say, right?
Death, leaving the body, being with people that had left their body, being with the body when they had left the building. That absolutely blew my mind, and how Julian and Gary. They encouraged us to honour that body. We did a ritual before and after. We even had flowers to put on the coffin before they were being cremated. Everything was collected, and then simply seeing that body and the genius of Julian, who was able to preserve that body without any formaldehyde, but with a natural fix. And they would look like they were sleeping. And it was a soft fix, and that also blew my mind. And then how I realized that I'd been searching outside of the body the whole time. You know, been to loads of ashrams, been with loads of teachers and gurus, and I realized that all of that dropped away because the biggest teacher is what we have behind the skin. And because I'm fascinated with feet, I thought that I would be at the feet, or I was so blown away that I didn't know what to do next. I just literally had to be in the flow. And I remember Julian said there's always one person that has to do one of the worst jobs, which was I had to clean out all the last part of the intestines, and we cut her in half. He did a frontal lobotomy. We held the brain, we held the lungs, but he got me to clean out all the feces, and it was the best job I could ever have, because it really got me into the depths of this woman. There was two women and one man, and how Gary and Julian held that space was exquisite. And Gary particularly, his graphic art and how he dissected the body and how he presented, for instance, a diaphragm to us was outstanding. And it was an artwork. And every day when I left the building, thankfully I was camping in my van, and we were living by a lake, so I could just literally jump in the water and walk in nature, because I just had to decompress from an intense physical, emotional, everything, spiritual, mental overload. And particularly one woman, I really admire her actually. One of the cadavers reminded her of her dad that had actually passed away quite soon before the dissection. And it was a big emotional time for her. So that was really emotional for me. But yeah, facing your own death, that's why I did it. That's why I did it, to really know that this is happening to all
Helen,
of us.
I've just lost you there, but I can cut it out. Go again from where you said you had to decompress from the overload. You had to decompress.
Yeah. I had to decompress from the overload by being in nature. And the major thing that I think I learned was, still learning, is facing our own, leaving our body. We all leave our body. You know, it was right there. It was right there. And I, you know, touching in every sense. It was an outrageous experience. So yeah, I had to stay while I was doing the course. I was living in a van, traveling in a Heimer, fabulous van, and I jumped in the water every day to decompress, and walked in nature. And I often, actually, 3 of us that were on the course afterwards, because we all met there. There was another guy in his van. We met there, and we recorded our experiences. And I often listened to it because it was so otherworldly. And there are many take homes, many messages that I got from that course. One of them is that I realized I knew absolutely nothing after looking inside the body. I can't make any assumptions. I can't rattle on about the psoas or anything like that. You know, this is so different to what I ever imagined. That nothing is symmetrical. Everything is unique. Everybody is unique. I also had crazy dreams the night before we started, but you know, you're really facing death. You know, you have this body where whatever you want to call it, the spirit or whatever name you want to put to who we are, had left the building, as I said, and we were privileged to look inside somebody that they'd never seen. I was more intimate with that person than they could have ever been. And they gave the permission for you to do that. I remember Julian saying, look, go in, cut the body open. This is what they want you to do. This is why they've given their body to you. Go for it. You know, this is such an honor. Because at the beginning, you're like, ooh, with the superficial fascia and the skin, you're like, oh, I'm scared to even cut. Where do I start? You know, you're standing there with the scalpel and this body and you're going, what do I do? And it was just outrageous. So I even realized that after holding the brain, after holding the lungs, how nothing can ever touch or match who we are. No machine, no AI, nothing can ever compare or merge with us, ever. Because we, like, I feel the same about animals completely. I have a dog, as you can hear, you know, and it's I feel that we're the same. I know that we can't pandiculate the way that they can. Their pandiculation is my major inspiration right now. But that experience shifted me into a place of not knowing anything, but at the same time giving me absolute freedom to realize that we are the ones that we are waiting for. A very famous Hopi quote. And we have everything. The body gives us everything. And I thought, now I know what that means. Our body is our temple. And I don't need to follow some philosophy or some kind of linear sequence. It's just being able to be fully present. Just like when you're giving someone, you know, you're holding someone's head, you're tuning into their cranial sacral rhythm, you're tuning into their tides. I mean, it's completely and utterly present, and it's unique to them. And that tide, you can feel your own tides responding, and our own waves interconnecting, our own roots melting. And I realize that nature is, you know,
it's what we are nature.
It's what we are nature. And we are an expression of that. So I'm still blown away. Still.
I felt it's so beautiful what you share, Helen. I felt, even though you're in Greece, I'm in UK, but the moment you said, you've learned that our body is our temple, there was a real change. We enter different space through Riverside, which flipping didn't work before, but there was such a change. The space got more spacious the moment you put that into the space. That's our bodies, our temple. And I felt deeply touched when you said that. And before that, you also shared how you learned that our body is the one and only teacher we need. Our body is our best teacher. And it's all in here and not out there. And we hear it, we read it, and that's it. That's the message I'd so love to share. And I hope that many listeners right now maybe feel that it's a change in density when we drop into, I have a body which is my temple, an abundant body. And I'm just thinking, maybe you also mentioned the feet before, how maybe you could give the listeners some inputs or an input, how, especially for people who might wonder, well, how can I also get this experience? Or what is a practice, maybe a very simple practice you do on a daily basis, which bring you in touch with that body is my teacher, or which allow you to meet the temple of your body you are and you inhabit?
Beautifully said.
I'd love to hear and to share it with everyone who's listening.
Beautifully said. So Iyengar says, and Gary often quotes this, our skin is the outer layer of the brain. So as I'm sitting here talking with you, how I can touch myself is I'm noticing the breeze on my skin, and that it's warm, and that my tummy's just rumbled, and I can feel the different textures that my feet are touching. So I've got one foot on the floor on pebbles, I've got one foot on the chair, so different textures. And as I start to visualize the feet, I'm getting a tingling sensation in the soles of my feet. So the sensory nerve endings in my feet are beginning to open, so they feel kind of spongy. And there's lots of crickets in the background, so those crickets are kind of getting me in contact with the back of my ribs, and I feel like there's a butterfly sliding and gliding, and the wings over the back of my ribs and up my neck from the crickets. And I'm under a sail. I have a sunroof, and my friend made a sail, so it's a beautiful reminder of how the body is. So these constant reminders from our outside environment, epigenetics, how we can feel that on the inside. So that's the kind of thing I do every day, is wherever I'm at, generally outside, most of the time. I try to be outside, or in the sea especially. I allow that to absorb through the outer layer of my brain, the skin. And especially because I wear goggles when I'm swimming, the reflection of the water on the bottom of the sea is often in rainbow colours, and it's continuously moving in this pulsing wave-like frequency, which we are. And quite often I have these, the beautiful word corona, the sun rays going into the water like laser beams, and they go right down into a prism. I often see that when I'm swimming in deeper water. That's what helps me remind me that I am the body, and the body holds everything, and it doesn't let you get away with anything. The body, the biology, as Caroline Mace, our biology and our biography are the same. So that quote always hits me. And so that's what I tend to do, is just keep reminding myself that I am connected to nature. My roots are like the roots of a tree through my feet, and sensing my spine, When I breathe, try to drop in. So I just stand somewhere, either on the beach or outside here or wherever I am, sometimes even in the car, and I sense just allowing my spine to show me how many directions or how it's moving with the breath, how the breath and the spine are moving and how the organs are being affected by the breath. So for me, it's a very internal sensation. And then I'll move, and it'll be dancing or whatever I feel like doing. So sometimes it's with weights, sometimes it's dancing. Most of the time it's rolling around on the floor.
Wow.
So yeah, just feeling and connecting to nature. That's, I think, my biggest inspiration. Or if I'm just about to go for a swim, my dog's normally with me, and I watch him pandiculate into down dog and up dog, or I watch him continuously up, working with his nervous system, like with a sigh or a deep so-called stretch, pandiculatory stretch. So inspiring how his nervous system keeps coming through his movement, how he up-regulates, how he down-regulates, how he balances himself. So, and also what
sounds to me like an invitation to drop our mind into the vastness of our skin, the vastness of that potential to sense, to feel, to just allow our brains. That's the image which helps me so much, to allow our so hardworking brains for one moment to melt and to almost become one with the sensory apparatus we are, and to just perceive.
Yeah. One great person I'm inspired by, she talks about reawaken. So one of her suggestions is to, there's nothing to follow, there's nothing to do, there's nothing to be. Just one suggestion to every day is just to, she calls it absorbing pure love. So you just sit or stand, lie down, whatever you want to do. And I often just look at the ocean because it's right here, and see what happens. And it's quite outrageous when you respond to what's coming up, if anything's coming up, and that can open up such a lot of so many pathways. And often, what I noticed. I remember John Stirk, a very wonderful and inspirational teacher. We always talked about when you're in those places of so-called, connection, whatever you want to call it, presence, your biggest insights come. So often an answer to a question or an idea creates itself in those moments. And that's when I often write things down or record something, or just to keep feeding my own sharing, because I'm continuously doing courses, Feldenkrais, or with Gary, or did one with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen recently, which is quite out there, and or speaking to people like you. I'm learning so much from my colleagues, Rue and Steve, and my mentor, Elizabeth, who is just a real backbone. So constantly feeding my
curiosity.
Field. Curiosity.
You have such a curious mind, Helen, and that's so inspiring.
Thank you. Being curious. Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you for that word.
Wow. You have shared so many wonderful and touching and playful things and events about your journey today, Helen. And I'd love to invite you for a part 2, because I think the other big topic where you have so much to give, and I'm sure many listeners would love to hear about, is how do you now use movements in your practice? And I agree, Gary encourages all his students to find their very unique style of teaching. And you teach Helen yoga, I would teach Florina yoga. And I think for a part 2, that's what would be lovely, to dive deeper into how do you use movement and touch from the background you shared with us today, where you come from today in your practice when you teach? And yeah, for today, before we round this conversation up, I would like to one more time pose the question, just ask, is there one thing right now in this moment from the conversation, is there one thing which you would like our listeners to take with them right now? I take with me from today the big reminder that our body, my body, is my temple. And I can trust that inner calling and path of passion, just knowing it's all right. And yeah, I would like to ask you, what is that one thing you would like to take the listeners with them right now?
Wonderful questions, Florina. I'm so proud of you. This brilliant interviewer. Thank you. What's coming up, what's arising in me is a great teacher. It's not a teaching, a reminder from an inspirational person I listen to, is to not censor yourself, is to be truly yourself and allow yourself to be who you need to be in expressing, for me it's movement, and not to give yourself, not to hold yourself back, and to be fully, express your inner freedom, because that's your uniqueness and your gift to yourself and to whoever you're sharing with. And I feel being yourself is the only way to be. And the biggest lesson for me right now is allowing others to be themselves as well.
Even harder lesson.
Much, just especially those close to you. Giving spaciousness, as Gary says, we want to move with space into space. I love that quote. And giving that spaciousness for others to be themselves. It's a continuous journey, very hard one for me. So, yeah, don't self-censor.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love all you said right now in the end. And I will take that with me. And I'm sure many listeners will take that with them as well.
Thank you.
Helen, I'm always fascinated how we can connect via internet and Riverside and microphone. And you are in Greece, I'm in the UK. And I felt you throughout the whole conversation. And yeah, just huge gratefulness that you took your time to talk to me and to us. And I hope to welcome you back soon. There is more to talk with you about and to share with the world.
Absolutely. Thank you, Florina. It's my absolute pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, that you gained a lot of inspiration and insights, and that it widened your horizon just as much as mine. And as always, I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts and comments about it on Instagram or Facebook or any podcast platform you're listening from at the moment. Tell me, what did you take from this episode and how did it inspire your path and journey? You can see where to find me and the breathing body in the show notes. And as always, a huge thank you to the amazing band Aspirian, which is playing the wonderful intro and outro music, which is movement in itself. You can find the full track and all their details in the show notes too. I wish you a wonderful day and week or weekend or evening wherever you are. Trust your feet, body and heart. Love, Florina.